Hi, I'm Mary, a librarian and book reviewer with a focus on stories written for kids, tweens, and teens. Today, I am joined by Taylor Lahey, who is a children's author and social entrepreneur working at the intersection of art, urbanism, and environmental change. Based in Santa Cruz, California, Taylor's work invites people to reconnect with their communities, their environment, and their shared humanity. Thanks so much for joining me today, Taylor.
Thank you for having me, Mary.
So tell us a little bit about your book, Câmbio.
Uh, Câmbio is about a child who grows up picking up litter and exchanging it for bus tokens through a city program. And while he's going about doing all this, he starts noticing a glow. And this glow has like, magical, maybe it's something mysterious, and he doesn't know how to feel about it. But over time, things start changing in the neighborhood as well as around the glow. And the and I don't want to give anything else away, but that's what the story is all about.
And it's based on a true story, is that correct?
It's based on real events that happened in Curitiba, Brazil. And in Curitiba, they had an actual trash exchange that has changed over the years. And what they did through a litter problem was encourage the residents to pick up that litter and to bring it to locations where the city could pick it up. These neighborhoods were informally built, like houses and roads informally built, and they couldn't get municipality trucks into those spaces. So they had workarounds that included civic participation and community leadership to solve these problems. And over time, it's actually evolved. There's more locations. All these places have been developed, and and now it's recyclables for local produce. And that's a lovely circular set of you call it you could call it like a circular economy between multiple parties. The city government, who gets to recycle this collected waste, this collected recyclables, the plastics usually, and then local farmers who get to get their surplus produce like sold to a reliable buyer, and then the local residents who get access to food security, which is healthy organic produce.
What inspired you to write this book?
I'm a bit of a alternative economics nerd, and I love the idea of a village. I love the idea of having people around me that know who I am, are able to help out, and in return they feel comfortable with me helping out. You could call this a safe place. We could call this a place of trust and being seen, and those two combined, when I saw that this program happened and still happens and has grown, I felt like it was magic. And I was lucky enough to go to Brazil and observe this exchange to start my book.
I was just going to ask you about that. So you got to go there in real life. What sort of research or collection of information did you work to put together to make this book?
So I observed the exchange called Câmbio Verde, which means green exchange, in three or four different locations, and they're all different parts of the city. And I met with the director of the program currently. I've met with the urban planners of the city, and of course, I just observed people participating in it. And I was lucky enough to basically pitch a grant project within my company to go do this. And then eventually, I left and decided to start writing Cambio. And that's how I got into it. And I'll also say that the company that I worked for, we really thought this was a world that we wanted to live in. And I see a world where we are able to take care of each other that works alongside like money. And when I found out about this program, it got me very interested in communities and in towns and how groups of people could really work together to take care of each other. And that was something that I wanted to care about and it kind of informed my vision for the world, the vision that I wanted to bring to where I live. And it became almost like an education. I not only went and got this idea to bring this story, which I didn't have a form for, and later I decided to move into having it become a children's book, and and really have it inform a lot of what I do in life. I now care deeply about community organization and ways of being together, which we basically just call, city programs, um, and and finding ways that we could all participate and contribute, not just take from each other or like have it be, I give you this and you give me that and it's done. But how can we kind of bring together our the things that we have and figure out ways to get each other what we need?
So the book itself is a picture book. I'd say it reads a little bit to me like a fable, and I'm curious who your intended audience is or who you hope is going to pick up the book and want to read it.
Well, a lot of how I wrote Cambio was based on fables. It is based on the idea was that I wanted to write a story that would feel like a fable going into the future, one that kind of sets us up to live into a more complex and connected world. And I wanted to feel like a story lost in time, a story that could have been lost in the shuffle with, with the Three Little Pigs or David and Goliath or Cinderella. So that's why while it's set in a modern setting, it's not it doesn't mention modern things, and even the language that I chose to use is supposed to feel like it could take place anywhere. It does happen to take place deeply in a very specific setting, but the way the story is written feels like it could take place anywhere in the world.
I agree with that. And I think also the fact that the characters are nameless also adds to that everyman quality that you're talking about there, and makes it feel like, even though it appears to be in one particular location, that anyone could imagine it in their own.
And that was very intentional because before choosing to bring the story into a kid's book, I first imagined it being told over a fire, and the fire could be anywhere. And yeah, fire at night where people would tell stories, especially the ones that were supposed to carry from generation to generation. Um, Keeping these characters nameless was really important. And but also with that decision comes, how do we hold these characters so they still have personality? And some of that is carried through the lovely drawings that Ryan Matias did, as well as like how it's brought up in the written form. Paulo Coelho is I mean, The Alchemist was such an informative and formative for me, a piece of writing that inspired Cambio, and I really appreciate how he identifies as a lyricist. And I took that to heart. I wanted my work, I wanted Cambio to feel like feel closer to a song than like an essay, than some other form of writing.
It definitely comes across that way. There's a universal sort of feel to it. And as soon as you mentioned Paulo Coelho and The Alchemist, I was like, oh, I get that. That definitely comes through in this. So well done.
Thank you.
So as you're putting the story together and kind of dreaming about what the world could be, should there be maybe an opportunity for a similar type of exchange to be happening in other locations, especially, for example, in the United States, where things are pretty organized as far as city planning goes. Do you see that this is a possibility elsewhere? Is that part of why this book exists?
So funny story. In 2023, I launched Cambio in a soft cover. And as I was getting to know how to be an author in the world and selling my book, I couldn't sit still. And I also think I have an appetite larger than being just a children's author. And and I also have a responsibility to what a program is and how I have this knowledge and I wanted to apply it to where I lived. I couldn't just be selling books. So I noticed that I live in a place that has it's a great place to bike, but yet not too many people bike. And people acquire bikes and they sit in garages. And I was one of those people. And I thought, well, what if we took these underutilized resources, just like in Cambio, where we had people that were able to pick up trash, but they were underutilized. They didn't have incentive to do it. There were farmers that were in the present tense. There were farmers with produce that wasn't getting purchased. But how can we utilize that to contribute to something bigger and move those things around and satisfy each other's needs? And I thought, well, we have people that probably need bikes, and we have a lot of nonprofits and other great organizations that would be willing to participate, offer their bikes or work on bikes, and of course receive them. So I put together a thing called the Bike Exchange, and I took the concepts from the Câmbio Verde and Câmbio, my book, and try to apply them to a 1 day event where we moved bikes from donation to refurbishing, fixing them, and then giveaway all in 1 day, just like the pop-up events that happen in the Câmbio Verde. And and we did just that. I organized 7 organizations. I worked with the Waldorf School to have them be the primary donor. I worked with the Community Bike Collective, which is a nonprofit that fixes bikes and promotes bike riding in Santa Cruz, where I live. And I worked with the Housing Authority that manages affordable housing residents in Santa Cruz. And we moved 70 bikes all in 1 day from donation, refurbishing, and giveaway. And it proved a lot of these things. If in many ways, honestly, Mary, in many ways, it felt like the glow was real. Not to give too much of the book away, but there was a feeling of people willing to participate, offer what no longer, like the things that they no longer need, but knows that someone else needs it, and then be able to put a little work into it and creating a place where everyone could participate, and that feels like it's high trust. It feels like it feels like community. Not every place with a lot of people doesn't feel like a community, and to have people get together and contribute created that sense and made some real impact and change. So I went and did it.
I think that's a great story. Have you been able to see some of the effects of that? Like, do you see any of those folks out on their bikes now in your community, in your neighborhood?
What's funny is Santa Cruz is not that big, but it's the place where we gave away bikes are in separate towns than where I live. I remember faces pretty well, honestly, and I think I would be able to spot them, but I'm not in these places often enough to go and see them riding their bike. That being said, I'm having done this event, the people I worked with, the Waldorf School that I worked with, the Community Bike Collective, the Housing Authority, and these other small businesses that offered either printing signage or uh, pizza to feed our mechanics. They really feel close to me, and we're now on a basis where if I have another event, I could rope them in and get them to participate some more. And they feel really close. That I wish I saw these people riding these bikes more often. A big part of why I did this was I have 2 nieces, and I want them to grow up in a place where if they want a bike, Santa Cruz at large, the whole county, the whole city wants you to have a bike. We could make that happen. There's enough bikes here. It's just a matter of coordination.
Yeah. Well, I think that it's cool that you were able to wrangle all of those folks with similar interests and then getting people what they need. Also reduces waste. There's so many benefits that came out of that. Do you have any sort of plans for future events that are similar in structure, or are you just kind of waiting for inspiration to strike?
No, I do. I originally really wanted to make a trash exchange happen in my town. And what's magical about Cambio is that over time these bus tokens start being used as a secondary currency. And as parents and adults reading this book with our children, it it breaks, I hope it breaks their mind a little bit. Like we could just do that. We could do the thing we need and get some sort of kickback, some sort of thank you and acknowledgement, some sort of value from doing the thing we all collectively need, a nicer place to live, a higher quality of life. How special. So in Santa Cruz, there's a river that runs through, and periodically it gets filled with litter. And there are organizations that clean it every once in a while, and they do a great job. It's just the scale isn't quite tapped, meaning we don't get. I mean, I want to see what if we could clean this whole river in 1 day. And just like the bike exchange as a model, as like an experiment, it proved that we could get a lot of people together and be very, very productive in a way that doesn't feel like anyone's overworked. And so I'm planning what I'm simply calling a trash exchange. I think fall is ambitious, but hopefully next year where I get all these organizations that already do this to go and clean together and work with credit unions to have them purchase our local currency, our downtown dollar. It's called the Santa Cruz downtown dollar, and have that, which is accepted in a number of small businesses all around San Francisco and neighboring towns. To have that be the reward for cleaning up for focused 2 to 3 hours. And what's really nice is one of the organizations has an app that allows you to track all the litter you pick up. And that's really special because it could prove how productive we were as a community. And what's really important is all types of trash matter. I don't want it to be based on weight because microplastics are a problem. And as long as it's categorized, I think that counts. So we're thinking about what if it's an amount picked up and documented rather than, weight. Weight was actually the idea of using weight was actually based on the Cumbio Verde today. It's a weight measurement that is equated to a certain amount of produce.
Oh, that's fascinating. And cool that you have just a local currency that parallels so nicely with your book. Um, do you have plans for the book to become a part of this event? Do you have like a story time that you're thinking of, or some way to engage readers with your action?
That's a good. I don't think that quite fits, but I don't get me wrong, Mary. I'm making sure the place where I live gets to really know me. Since writing since writing Câmbio, like I've really started investing in and exploring and thinking deeply about the word community, the structure of community, the sense of community, and it's really important to me that where I live is offered the opportunity to love my story, love my work, and to know that I am available and want to be of service as a storyteller. And that means speaking at schools and reading to them there. I think the right context is important. And I think inevitably, if I do a good enough job and it's proven how open Santa Cruz is to working with local authors and people like me, that it's very doable that the story will go into the right places that fit better than alongside a river for a story time. It might be really magical to have it be like that, but I just think it's great to be able um, to 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 have both options. I don't feel limited to like, all right, we've got to get the story out and I got to read it before we do pick up some trash.
That's fair. So, as you were putting together the story, was there a specific moment that resonated with you in particular, or one that appeared in the book from your own experience in the town?
Particular moment. There was a lovely moment in sort of visual problem solving that Ryan and I worked together on. We did very many versions of the last spread. I don't want to give it away, but it's very similar to the first spread, and I'll just say that. And we had different solutions for it, and it ended up being very simply a before and after. Very similar shot, just changed and shown progress at the end. And it's a little nerdy on how to design a book, how to write a book with a creative partner, but when we found that, it brought a wholeness and such a lovely like succinct and simplicity that really felt true to how simple the story is and how simply told the story is. And um, that really felt magical for Ryan and I. There's just something about being in the process that felt really good. And then to follow up, another one was the glow and really bringing that to life. I remember just looking at a bunch of different references from different religions and spiritual practices of how they visualize enlightenment and we found the colors that we liked and the textures that we liked in that, and we knew it was sort of a risk. We tested the book with different families and different demographics, and some of them were like, "Oh, that's a little intense," and some other people were like, "I like that," and I think both were such great responses. There's something so special about being seen, and with an open and caring expression. It's disarming in the best way, and that's really what we worked on as we were nailing these expressions for the characters that were glowing. So yeah, those are the big breakthroughs that I just hold close to my heart in finishing the book with Ryan.
That's awesome. So it sounds like you had a lot of input as far as the illustrations and some communication with the illustrator as well. I know that doesn't always happen with picture books. So was that something that you actively looked for as far as putting it together, or did it just kind of land that way?
So I'm not the average author. My background's in graphic design. I've designed books for companies, whether if it's an annual report or a pamphlet to small booklets. I just was very comfortable with that. And I see this as sort of my capstone project. And I had what I jokingly call a quarter life crisis. And in my late 20s, I went back to animation school and I was lucky enough to meet Ryan. And I studied storyboarding and character design. And I came to really appreciate, I use the word wholeness, like to be able to care for everything in a project. I mean, I did not study, sets and backgrounds, but, just knowing how to bring a character through a story was really important to me and really informative. I met Ryan there and we studied under some amazing Pixar designers, character designers. The first school I went to was right outside Pixar, and Ryan ended up working for Pixar, getting the internship there. So proud of him. And I mean, I applied to it too. I was a little bummed. And and lucky enough, I got a great education there, and when the time came to finally make moves and start Cambio, I wanted to draw it all myself, but I realized I had to honor the voice of the story, and it was going to be enough just to write this thing, rewrite, edit, as far as I could take it. And I eventually hired Ryan. So we had a very close working relationship. It felt way more like the workflow of going from script to storyboards, or they're called beat boards as well, and pitching it to like a studio. And it's really how we ended up holding the story through the whole creative process. And even now, I have hopes of bringing this to an animated short. And I mean, the book is such a delightful artifact. I described it as a base camp on the way up to the summit.
Yeah, absolutely. And how cool that you got to have this working relationship with someone that you'd already had a personal relationship with. I think that's great. So, what is it that you hope that readers will come away with after reading this book? I know that the idea of having community synergy is very important, but is there like a call to action that you hope that they come away with?
I I believe in a modern village. I believe in the modern community. I believe in local community, and I think we all feel that. We may not believe it, but I feel like we want to be open and trusting and be able to rely on the people around us. And um, I'd like to think that this is a vision of this is a way and a vision. Combio is a way and a vision of how that could start looking, and in a very achievable way. Um, and and I don't know if it will feel spiritual for everyone. I don't know if it will necessarily get everyone what they need, and we have or the people around them have what they need, and we could help each other get there. But I do think just trying it and keeping this as a way of of how to be in community is just a start. I, I I always I think about how people say less is more, and I do still believe that sometimes, but I really want more to be more. I really believe that we could with more people, with the brilliance and the gifts of everyone, we could achieve more. And what Combio proves is with coordination, with vision, with leadership, more can be more. Um, and so yeah, I really care about that. I care about that deeply, and I hope it brings hope to humanity.
I love it. Well, I think your passion for this work comes through not only in this book, but also in our conversation. And I foresee lots of great things to come from that. Where can readers go to find more about you and the things that you're working on?
So the book has a website, cambiostory.com, and I have a website, taylorlahey.com. And if you want to see what I'm up to in Cambio land, go to Cambio Story. I have updates on where I'll be doing my book tour throughout the summer, and I'll probably build some stuff into the fall and winter. And if you want to know about any of the work I'm doing in community organizing or social entrepreneurship, that you should go to taylorlahey.com. If you want to know the latest, you could go to my Instagram, and that's at Taylor Lahey.
Perfect. Thank you, Taylor, so much for joining me today and having this really rich conversation. I appreciate your time and all the energy that you've put into this book.
Thank you so much for having me, Mary.
Yeah, and if Cambio sounds like a great fit for you or for someone you know, I hope you look for it wherever you get your books and find Taylor at all the places that he mentioned as well. Thanks everyone for listening, and thanks again, Taylor.
Bye, everyone.